After a tiring day at work, Sarah checked into the hotel. It was the last day of her business trip, and she had an early morning flight to catch. As she settled into her room, it seemed calm and peaceful, yet an odd feeling crept in. An eerie silence enveloped the room. While preparing to lie down and sleep, she heard a strange rustling in the room, initially dismissing it as the wind seeping through the window. The sound grew more distinct and began to unsettle her. Sensing something amiss, she started pacing around the room. She recoiled at a faint rustling emanating from the closet in a dark corner. She glimpsed someone who shouldn't have been there. Her eyes widened in shock for a moment before the figure vanished into thin air. After experiencing moments of terror, Sarah rushed to the reception to report the incident. However, when the staff checked the room, everything appeared normal. The room was empty. No one was present, and even the window was closed. Despite trying to pass it off as a hallucination, Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling of oddness. While preparing to head to the airport early in the morning, she heard that peculiar rustling again. This time the sound felt closer, almost as if she could feel its breath on her neck. She hurriedly left the room in fear and rushed to the airport. Yet, at every step, that strange rustling seemed to follow her. Upon reaching the airport, she realized that the peculiar entity was actually an airport employee. However, the face of that employee was identical to the person she saw, and she believed she had spent a night filled with terror and hoped it was just a dream. However, encountering that eerie presence, the airport truly unsettled her. The recurrence of the events from the hotel room in the airport raised questions in her mind. What had she truly experienced? And was that entity real? At the airport, Sarah couldn't shake off the impact of the previous night's events. Amid a crowd of around 30 people, she felt the peculiar entity's gaze fixed upon her. Trembling with fear, she realized that the entity was tailing her. It seemed to stare at her at every corner and passage. Finally, as she rushed through security to catch her flight, the entity persisted. Despite her efforts to blend in among the crowd, the entity wouldn't let go. While passing through security, Sarah suddenly froze. The strange entity appeared before her, its face resembling a mask, its eyes gleaming like deep voids. Sarah could feel her heart racing. She let out a scream of terror, and nearby security personnel intervened. However, the peculiar entity vanished instantly. Trembling, Sarah ran toward her plane. She couldn't open her eyes until the plane landed. After landing, she swiftly left the airport, wanting to distance herself. While hurrying away, she glimpsed that same void and a sparkle in the eyes of a passerby. Was it truly a hallucination, or was something following her? This question lingered in her mind as memories of that terrifying night and the eerie entity remained vivid. Sarah felt as though everyone around her bore the same void and sparkle in their eyes. As she hurried along, increasing her pace, breathless with each step, she felt lost in the chaos of the airport, with the peculiar entity still tailing her. In a dark corridor, thinking she was alone, she found a moment to catch her breath. Yet at that moment, she heard an odd rustling behind her. Scanning the area, finding no one, the strange sound drew nearer. She began to panic, unsure of which way to run. Trying to head toward the light at the end of the corridor, she was surrounded by darkness. The peculiar entity was approaching step by step, each step intensifying Sarah's fear. She spotted a door, dashed toward it, and entered. As the door closed behind her, darkness enveloped the room. A moment of silence passed, with Sarah hearing only her own breath. In that dark room, a hand suddenly touched her. She screamed in terror, and the lights flickered on. Before her stood an airport attendant with a pleading expression. The attendant asked Sarah what had happened. She recounted breathlessly, yet the attendant looked at her bewildered. The attendant said, "Mum, for us to help you, you need to leave this place immediately, but this area is closed, and no one has been in this room for a while." Sarah's expression froze. Weren't that peculiar entity and the rustling in the dark room real? What had she experienced then? With a momentary mix of fear and confusion, she quickly exited the room and left the airport in a hurry. She found it challenging to discern what was real and what was a hallucination. Sarah hastened away from the airport. The events of that night left a significant question mark in her mind as she hurried towards a bus stop in the city. She still felt the presence of watching eyes. Pausing for a moment, she looked around, but no one was there boarding a bus. She left the city. She closed her eyes, wanting to erase the memories of that strange entity and the events. However, every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the void and sparkle. Since that day, Sarah disappeared. No one heard from her, and there were no traces of her at the hotel or the airport. She vanished suddenly, leaving behind only tales of that peculiar night. Some believed she was abducted by a horrifying entity, while others thought she suffered from a mental breakdown due to the events. However, the truth of what happened and what she truly experienced remained uncertain. Sarah's mysterious disappearance remained shrouded in deep secrecy. After those peculiar events, her story, intertwined with that horrifying night, remained merely a legend in the pages of history. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to follow and subscribe.